Mieszko II Lambert, c. 990 10/11 May 1034, was King of Poland from 1025 to 1031, and Duke from 1032 until his death. He was the second son of Bolesław I Chrobry, but the eldest, born from his third wife Emmilda, daughter of Dobromir, possible ruler of Lusatia. He was probably named after his paternal grandfather Mieszko I. His second name, Lambert, sometimes erroneously considered to be a nickname, was given to him as a reference to the cult of St. Lambert. Also, it is probable that this name Lambert was chosen after Bolesław Chrobry's half-brother Lambert. It is thought that the choice of this name for his son was an expression of warming relations between Bolesław Chrobry and his stepmother Oda. He organized two devastating invasions to Saxony in 1028 and 1030. Then Mieszko II ran a defensive war against Germany, Bohemia and the Kievan princes. Mieszko II was forced to escape from the country in 1031 after an attack of Yaroslav I the Wise, who installed Mieszko's older half-brother Bezprym onto the Polish throne. Mieszko took refuge in Bohemia, where he was imprisoned by the Duke Uldrich. In 1032, he regained power in one of the three districts, then united the country, making good use of the remaining power structures. At this time, several Polish territorial acquisitions of his father were lost. Upper Lusatia, part of Lower Lusatia, Red Ruthenia, western and central part of Upper Hungary, and probably Moravia. Mieszko II was very well educated for the period. He was able to read and write, and knew both Greek and Latin. He is unjustly known as Mieszko II Nuzny. He received that epithet due to the unfortunate way his reign ended, but at the beginning he acted as a skillful and talented ruler. Life. Early years. Since Mieszko II was politically active before his father's death, Bolesław Chrobry appointed him as his successor. He participated mainly in German politics, both as a representative of his father and the commander of the Polish troops. In 1013 Mieszko II went to Magdeburg, where he paid homage to the Emperor Henry II. A few months later Bolesław Chrobry paid homage in person. The real purpose of Mieszko's visit is unclear, especially since soon after his father paid homage to the Holy Roman Empire. Presumably, the young prince paid homage for Mieszko in Moravia and Lusatia. The relevant treaty stipulated that it was only a personal tribute, not entailing any legal obligations. Another hypothesis assumes that the territories were transferred by Bolesław Chrobry to him, and as a result made Mieszko a vassal of the empire. The position of the young prince at the both Polish and imperial courts became stronger in 1013 when he married Richeza, daughter of Count Palatine Etzo of Lotharingia and niece of Emperor Otto III. Etzo was a prince of a considerable influence as a great leader of the opposition against Henry II. Through the marriage with his daughter Mieszko, he entered into the circle of the imperial family and became a person equal to, if not higher than, the emperor himself. Probably after the wedding, and in accordance with prevailing custom, Bolesław Chrobry gave a separate district to Mieszko II to rule. Kraków, one of his towns, was chosen by the prince as his residence. In the year 1014 Mieszko II was sent by his father to Bohemia as an emissary. He had to persuade Duke Uldrich to make an alliance against the Emperor Henry II. The mission failed as Uldrich imprisoned Mieszko. He was released only after the intervention of the emperor, who, despite the planned betrayal of Bolesław Chrobry, loyally acted on behalf of his vassal. As a result, Mieszko was sent to the imperial court in Mersburg as a hostage. Henry II probably wanted to force the presence of Bolesław I Chrobry in Mersburg and make him explain his actions. The plan failed, however, because, under pressure from his relatives, the emperor soon agreed to release Mieszko. A year later, Mieszko II stood at the head of Polish troops in the next war against the emperor. The campaign wasn't favorable to Henry. His army needed over a month to reach the line of the Oder River, and once there, his troops encountered strong resistance led by Mieszko and his father. Henry II sent a delegation to the Polish rulers in an effort to induce them to conclude a peace settlement. Mieszko II refused, and after the emperor's failure to defeat his troops in battle, Henry decided to begin retreating to Dobromir. The Polish prince went on pursuit, and inflicted heavy losses on the German army. When the Polish army advanced to Meissen, Mieszko II unsuccessfully tried to besiege the castle of his brother-in-law, Margrave Hermanni. The fighting stopped in autumn and was resumed only in 1017 after the failure of peace talks. Imperial forces bypassed the main defensive site near Krosno-Odrzański and besieged Niemcia. At the same time, at the head of 10 legions, Mieszko went to Moravia and planned an allied attack together with Bohemia against the emperor. This action forced the emperor to give up on a plan of any frontal attack. A year later, the Peace of Bautzen was concluded, with terms extremely favorable to the Polish side. Beginning in 1028, he successfully waged war against the Holy Roman Empire. He was able to repel its invading army, and later even invaded Saxony. He allied Poland with Hungary, resulting in a temporary Hungarian occupation of Vienna. This war was probably prompted by family connections of Mieszko's in Germany who opposed Emperor Conrad II. Due to the death of Theodemar of Mersburg, the principal chronicler of that period, there is little information about Mieszko II's life from 1018 until 1025, when he finally took over the government of Poland. Only Gallus Anonymous mentions the then prince on occasion of the description of his father's trip to Rus in 1018, due to the fact that his son, Mieszko, wasn't considered yet capable of taking the government by himself. He established a regent among his family during his trip to Rus. This statement was probably the result of the complete ignorance of the chronicler. Since 1018, Mieszko II was 28 years old and was already fully able to exercise the power by himself. King of Poland coronation and inheritance. Bolesław I Chrobry died on the 17th of June 1025. 6 months later, on Christmas Day, Mieszko II Lambert was crowned King of Poland by the Archbishop of Gniezno, Hippolyte, in the Gniezno Cathedral. Contemporary German chroniclers considered this to be an abuse of power on the part of the Archbishop, which was made necessarily by the existing political situation. After his father's death, Mieszko inherited a vast territory, which in addition to Greater Poland, Lesser Poland, Silesia and Gdansk Pomerania also included Western Pomerania, as well as Lusatia, Red Ruthenia and territory of present-day Slovakia. Whether Moravia was still under his reign or was lost earlier is disputed. Once his solo reign had begun, as an important Central European ruler, he was now very important to the Holy Roman Empire. Later developments during his reign had their source in dynastic and familial issues. His older half-brother Bezprym was the son of the Hungarian princess Judith, Bolesław Chrobry's second wife. Mieszko also had a younger full brother, Otto. According to Slavonic custom, a father was expected to divide his legacy among all his sons. However, since Bolesław Chrobry did not wish to break up the kingdom, Mieszko's brothers received nothing from the father's legacy. As Bezprym was the oldest son, there were some who felt that he should have succeeded Bolesław Chrobry as king. Bezprym had, however, always been disliked by his father, as indicated by his name, and Henrik Bezprym was rather a commoner's name, which implied that Bolesław Chrobry did not wish Bezprym to succeed him. For that reason, Bezprym was sent to a monastery. According to some chroniclers, Mieszko II expelled his two brothers from the country. Otto took refuge in Germany and Bezprym escaped to the Kievan Rus. Support to German opposition. In 1026, the German King Conrad II went to Italy for his imperial coronation. His absence increased the activity of the opposition centered around the Dukes Ernest II of Swabia and Frederick II of Upper Lorraine. Conrad II's opponents conspired to acquire the favor of the King of Poland. Historical evidence of these efforts is in the prayer book sent to Mieszko II by the Duchess Matilda of Swabia around 1027. The volume is entitled Officiorum Liber Quem Ordinem Romanum Appellant. In it, a miniature showed the Duchess presenting the book to Mieszko II while sitting on a throne. The gift was accompanied by a letter, wherein Matilda named him a distinguished king and a father of the model for the spread of Christianity. Also written was praise of the merits of Mieszko II in the building of new churches, as well as knowledge of Latin, very unusual in those times when Greek was more widely used. In this book were found the earliest records of the Kingdom of Poland. Noim at the margins of the sequence ad Celebes Rex Celica. The gift caused the expected effect, and Mieszko II promised to take military action. The preparations for the war began in the autumn of 1027. In the middle of that year, Conrad II returned to Germany and began to fight the rebels. Soon he defeated Duke Ernest II, depriving him of his lands. Only when the rebel fight was nearly lost did Mieszko II arrive to their aid. In 1028, Polish troops invaded Saxony and took a number of prisoners. The devastation was so great that, according to Saxon sources where Mieszko II's troops put the feed grass never thence grew, the emperor accused the Polish ruler of an illegal coronation as king and declared him a usurper. This invasion involved the lands of the Lusatia tribe. In October 1028, the emperor's opportunity came as the Lusatia district of Poland asked the emperor to defend against the attacks of Mieszko II, promising support in the fight against the Polish ruler. Retaliatory Expeditions. Despite the treaty which secured peace between Poland and Germany, the emperor soon armed a retaliatory expedition against Mieszko II. Conrad II's army arrived to Lusatia in the autumn of 1029 and began the siege of Badzin, but the German troops did not receive the promised support of the Lusatia tribe and the expedition failed. Threatened by the Hungarians, the emperor was forced to retreat. Probably in this same year, the son of Eldric, Bretislaus I, attacked and took Moravia. In 1030, Mieszko II secured an alliance with Hungary and once again invaded Saxony. In the meanwhile, his southern ally attacked Bavaria and temporarily occupied Vienna. In response, the emperor organized another expedition against the Polish king, this time by organizing a coalition against Mieszko II. Already in 1030, Yaroslav I the Wise began the offensive and conquered Red Ruthenia and Cymbel's castles. The emperor in 1031 concluded a peace with the Kingdom of Hungary, probably in exchange for his support. Conrad II gave to the King Stephen I the territories between the Leitha and Fisher rivers, ceding them to Hungary. Now that the emperor was less concerned about an attack from the south, in the autumn of 1031 he went on the offensive against Poland and besieged Milsko. The offensive ended with a complete success, and Mieszko II was forced to surrender some lands. As a result, the Polish king lost portions of the lands taken by his father Bolesław Chrobry, who warred often against the Emperor Henry II. The situation in Poland, historians estimate that the reason for the rapid capitulation of Mieszko II was the bad internal situation in the country. Bolesław Chrobry left to his son an unstable kingdom, who had to defend his autonomy and position amongst neighboring rulers. Also, the cost of Mieszko II's extensive war against Emperor Conrad II caused his popularity to decline among his subjects, despite the fact that on the invasion of Saxony the king only defended the territory. Furthermore, the final loss of the war against the Holy Roman Empire weakened the position of the king, who had to face several rebellions among the opposition who claimed that the previous war didn't produce the expected benefits. An additional problem was a dynastic crisis. Mieszko II's brothers continued their attempts to regain power with the help of foreign forces. Attack of Yaroslav I the Wise. Deposition. Probably the brother who caused the first problems to Mieszko II was Bezprym, who allegedly, with the support of Otto, won the alliance of Kiev in order to take power. When Mieszko II was busy defending Lusatia from the troops of Conrad II, the Kievan expedition started from the east with Yaroslav I the Wise as the leader. In 1031 Poland was invaded and then Bezprym was settled on the throne. Mieszko II and his family were forced to flee the country. Queen Richeza and her children found refuge in Germany. The king couldn't escape to Hungary because during his travel he was stopped by Rus troops. King Stephen I of Hungary wasn't favorable to accepting him in his country. Without alternatives, Mieszko II went to Bohemia. Duke Uldrich once again imprisoned him. This time the king wasn't counting with the imperial support. Mieszko II was not only imprisoned but also castrated, which was to be a punishment to Bolesław Chrobry, who blinded Duke Bolesław III the Red 30 years before. Mieszko II and his wife never reunited again. According to some sources they were either officially divorced or only separated. Restoration to the throne. The new Duke Bezprym probably made bloody persecutions against the followers of Mieszko II. At the time the power was exercised to the mutiny, and the people known as the pagan reaction have degraded the structure of power. The duke's authority collapsed, and he was forced to send the royal crown and regalia to the emperor. After only 1 year of reign, Bezprym was murdered, probably thanks to the instigations of his brothers. After the death of Bezprym, the Polish throne remained vacant. Mieszko II was still imprisoned in Bohemia and Otto probably in Germany. German sources report that the emperor has organized an expedition in order to invade Poland. It is unknown what happened after this, but certainly Mieszko II was released by Duke Uldrich and he could return to the country. After his recent opponent could regain the power, the emperor immediately reacted and began the preparations for the expedition against Poland. Mieszko II wasn't prepared for the confrontation, so he used his influence in the German court in order to resolve the conflict. On the 7th of July 1032, in Mersburg, a meeting took place between Conrad II and the surviving heirs of the Piast dynasty. Without alternatives, Mieszko II was forced to surrender the royal crown and agreed to the division of Poland between him and the other two competitors, his brother Otto and certain Dietrich, cousin, grandson of Duke Mieszko I, and his third wife Oda. Mieszko II probably received Lesser Poland and Masovia. Otto obtained Silesia, and Dietrich took Greater Poland. Another proposal involves that Mieszko II received Greater Poland, and other neighborhoods were given to Otto and Dietrich. Although the distribution was uncertain, this division was short-lived. In 1033 Otto was killed by one of his own men, and Mieszko II took his domains. Shortly after, he could have expelled Dietrich and thus was able to reunite the whole country in his hands. Mieszko II regained the full power, but he still had to fight against the nobility and his own subjects. It should be noted that in Poland his renunciation to the royal crown wasn't counted, and after 1032, in the chronicles, he was still called king. Death. Mieszko II died suddenly between 10 and the 11th of May 1034, probably in Poznan. The Polish chronicles clearly stated that he died of natural causes. The information that he was murdered by the sword-bearer, given by the chronicles of Gottfried of Viterbo, refers to Bezprym. However, the historians now think that he was killed in a plot hatched by the aristocracy. He was buried in the Cathedral of St. Peter and St. Paul. After Mieszko II's death, Poland's peasants revolted in a pagan reaction. The exact reasons and date are unknown. Mieszko II's only son and heir, Casimir I, was either expelled by this insurrection, or the insurrection was caused by the aristocracy's expulsion of him. Some modern historians argue that the insurrection was caused more by economic than by religious issues, such as new taxes for the church and the militarization of the early Polish polity. Priests, monks and knights were killed, cities, churches and monasteries were burned. The chaos became still greater when unexpectedly the Czechs invaded Silesia and Greater Poland from the south. The land became divided among local rulers, one of whom is known by name Miklo, ruler of Masovia. Greater Poland was so devastated that it ceased to be the core of Polish kingdom. The capital was moved to Krakow in Lesser Poland. Marriage an issue. In Merseburg, California, 1013, Mieszko II married with Richeza, daughter of Count Palatinetzo of Lotharingia. They had at least 3 children and possibly 4. Reixa, married by 1039 42 to King Beacutle I of Hungary. Casimir I the Restorer. Gertruda, married by 1043 to Grand Prince Iziaslav I of Kiev. Possibly Agatha, wife of Edward the Exile, held by some to have been a daughter of Yaroslav the Wise among others, but more recently alleged to have been a daughter of Mieszko II and Richeza. Ancestry.